Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Does your heart have an intelligence all its own? If so, what part of your overall intelligence comes from your heart? How does heart intelligence differ from brain intelligence? But most importantly, can heart intelligence save the world? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and the X-Zone TV channel, divisions of REL-MAR McConnell Media Company, with studios and corporate offices in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. With us this hour to discuss the power of heart intelligence is Howard Martin. Howard is one of the original leaders who helped Doc Gwilda find HeartMath. He's co-authored HeartMath Solutions and was a contributing author for Heart Intelligence, connecting with the heart's intuitive guidance for effective choices and solutions. Howard produced the HeartMath Experience, a cinematic learning experience. He's been instrumental in business development and in speaking and teaching HeartMath programs to thousands of participants worldwide. His website, heartmath.com. Howard, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Well, hello, Gwilda. Good to be with you again.
Yes.
As always, looking forward to our conversation, and I want to greet everyone who's listening to this, wherever you are, whenever you are, all around the world. So it's a wonderful opportunity and a good way for me to start my day-to-day to talk about what's most meaningful. And as always, thank you so much, Gwilda, for what you do.
Thank you, Howard, for what you do, and it's so wonderful having you back on the show. Let's start out with, what is heart intelligence?
Within each and every one of us, there's this magnificent, wonderful intelligence that can and does lift us beyond our problems, even in the midst of chaos and confusion. It's a high-speed, intuitive intelligence. It's an intelligence that gives rise to the emotional qualities that we really want more of in our life, like more love, more care, more kindness, more compassion, more dignity, more honor. It's an intelligence that does provide the self-security that we need at times, especially as we go through some of the challenges associated with modern living. Ultimately, what I find is that heart intelligence is an intuitive guidance system. It's my own best friend for making decisions that I need to make in life, whether they be big decisions or little decisions. And when we add all that up, what we have is a intelligence that we're born with, intelligence that's always there for us, and intelligence that we tap into from time to time, and intelligence that is really, to me, essential for living a meaningful, fulfilling life.
I understand that you and the crew at HeartMath have done a gang of studies on this heart intelligence. Would you tell us just a little bit about that?
I'll be happy to. You know, we've been doing this now for over 30 years, and started out in 1991, a long, long time ago. Our goal and mission at the time was to try to introduce a heart-based or heart-directed system into the world that people could use to meet the challenges that were taking place then and that we knew were going to increase over time. So we had a goal, we had a mission. How can we bring more heart into the world? How can we create a more heart-directed or heart-centered world? We also recognized that, heart had been talked about thousands of years, going way, way back, and that people referenced the heart all the time, but that somehow it wasn't being taken quite as literally or quite as seriously as we felt it could be. So we thought, we need to build a bridge here, between what people generally say about heart and what is talked about in the realms of philosophy and spirituality. How do we make that more appropriate for daily living? And we have to find a way to bridge that. We chose science to be the bridge. The reason we did that is that, I'm sure, Gwilda, you would recognize as well as our listeners, the science carries a lot of weight. It's respected. When something is proven to be true through empirical science, the power of belief increases rather dramatically. Science says, and it's proven it, and therefore I will believe in it. So we needed to create a new belief about heart. So we began many, many years ago doing research on the physical heart. We could have started with the wide stuff, with the bigger picture stuff, but we decided we build this research step by step in a very solid way that can maintain scientific credibility throughout. When we looked at the physical heart, we found that the heart, of course, is a cardiovascular organ. But what we discovered through our research and research with others around the world is that the heart is more than that. It's actually a very important information processing center in our bodies. It is sending and also, I believe, receiving information. It sends information to the brain and throughout the entire body. I don't know how deep you want me to go, but it does it in four ways. There's a neurological communication, a biochemical one, a biophysical one, and most interestingly, an energetic one. And so, in essence, what this says is that, the physical heart is speaking. And that relates to the metaphors we've heard about heart, about listening to the heart, following your heart. The heart knows. We see the world differently through the eyes of the heart. All these statements that were made, we had some scientific support to say that these statements are not just metaphors, that there's an actual realistic truth in what's been said about heart for thousands of years.
Well, I understand that there is an electromagnetic field that surrounds the human body.
Yeah.
What does heart have to do with that?
It's what's produced in the field. Your heart is an electrical organ. If you or I or anybody watching goes to the doctor and the doctor says, I'm going to take your electrocardiogram now, what did they just say? Electrocardiogram. The heart produces electricity. It's by far the strongest source of bioelectricity that we have, about 40 to 60 times stronger than the second most powerful source of bioelectricity, which is our brain. So the heart produces enough electricity that it creates a magnetic field. That magnetic field surrounds us in 360 degrees, right around our body. And it can be measured with the most conservative equipment you can measure fields with, about 3 feet or 1 meter outside the body. So we're producing this magnetic field. It's going to every single cell in our body, but it's also going out into space at least 1 meter. Now, many scientists believe that the 1 meter measurement is very, very conservative, that the field goes out much, much further than 1 meter. It's just a matter of what you're using to measure it. When I think about that field, I also try to think about it through the lens of quantum physics. Now, to be honest, I am far from any kind of an expert on quantum physics, but I do know one thing. When you consider things through the field of quantum physics, you remove the normal barriers of time and of space. And so what that means is this field produced by our heart, easily detected 1 meter or 3 feet outside the body, possibly going much, much further, into the physical domain, but also connecting it to something much, much larger that goes beyond the normal barriers of time and space. And so the field itself is, to me, the most important communication vehicle that the heart has.
I understand, Howard, that wherever one electromagnetic field crosses another, there are these things that are formed that are called X points. And this is NASA is out there trying to find all these X points because I guess the sun and the earth also have electromagnetic fields, much like what our body does. And what they're finding is wherever the electromagnetic field of the earth crosses with that of the sun, there's a wormhole or a bridge between time and space. How does this relate to the electromagnetic field of the heart and information?
Well, it's a wonderful question. And first of all, every living system is producing a field, some sort of a magnetic field. And a lot of the research that we're involved in today is looking at, how fields affect one another, what information is being exchanged in the fields, the unseen energetic connections between all living systems on this planet and beyond, really. So fields exchange information all the time. I can offer a very simple analogy. It would be our cell phones. A cell phone produces a magnetic field. We imprint that magnetic field with information. It can be our phone call. It can be a picture we send someone. It can be a text that we send someone. But we imprint the magnetic field with information. That information is sent via cell phone towers to someone else's phone, which has a magnetic field. And that magnetic field picks up that information and then interprets it. So someone sees the picture or someone receives the phone call. The same type of process is going on between all living systems. It's just unseen. It's an unseen form of important, essential communication that links everything. Everything within the universe is linked through these energetic fields. How it relates to heart? Well, if the heart's producing the biggest field, it's probably got the more to do with those energetic connections than the rest of our physiology, because it's producing by far the strongest and biggest and most sophisticated field that we produce as human beings.
So we're about to run out of time in this segment, but I've got a big question for you here. Okay, so we're getting information through the electromagnetic fields. How do we interpret that and translate it into day-to-day use or thoughts?
Well, first of all, that information can often be more intuitive than it is linear. There's nothing wrong with linear logical mind intelligence. We have to have that. It's essential as well. But there's an intuitive intelligence that's associated with heart, that we get these impulses, we get these feelings. Intuition is often a feeling more than it is a thought. It's a sensing that we have. And learning to access and become more sensitive to that intuitive information relates to how we live our lives. How do we make decisions? How do we decide one thing? How do we decide to hire somebody or not hire somebody? How do we make the choice about what we're going to eat next? Lots of different questions that come up in just the flow of daily living. The interpretation has to be of like sensing the impulses, sensing the intuitive, nudges that we get from time to time, and then acting on them, actually taking the next step of manifesting and doing something with what we're feeling inside. That's the interpretive sort of process that I think we're going through right now.
So again, we're about out of time here, but so that sounds to me like this is pretty much what animals have been running on all along.
Well, animals certainly do have a different type of intelligence that we don't tend to respect as much, because it doesn't think, it doesn't produce numbers, it doesn't necessarily show emotion in the same way. But the ability for animals to sense is amazing. And I think, when I watch these nature shows and I hear about these things that animals do, I go, how do they do that? How does a turtle know exactly where to go his entire life, to swim thousands of miles to go lay eggs, and stuff like that. How do birds know how to navigate? How does my cat understand me? I have a cat. I love my cat. How does this cat and I definitely communicate energetically all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
it's that magic moment. We're going to have to take that station break. Howard and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Our intelligence is not all in our head. With us this hour discussing the power of heart intelligence is Howard Martin. His website, heartmath.com. So, Howard, again, we were talking about how the heart, it gets information and sends information, and how we get that to register with the head. You were saying that feelings is the language of the heart. How do we interpret those feelings?
Well, I think that we have to recognize that, very naturally, it didn't take much to see that certain feelings seem to benefit us more than others. Uh, for example, I don't make good decisions if I'm frustrated about something. If I get frustrated in a business meeting, for example, I'm not going to come up with the best solution, for whatever's being discussed. Conversely, when we are feeling some of the emotions that have long been sort of associated with the word heart, when we're feeling appreciation for life, that opens the door for so much to come to us. We begin to see things very differently when we're appreciating versus when we're complaining. The world looks different. The wide angle lens begins to take place. So, care, love, compassion, I mean, I can name them all, but there's so many heart related emotions. And it becomes obvious, I think, from an interpretation standpoint, that life's going to work best if we try to operate more from those emotional states. The tendency, however, is not to do that. It becomes so easy for us to live in a place where we immediately blame or we immediately judge, or we get frustrated about the small things in life that don't really count.
So is this see if I understand you right. So the heart emotions are love, appreciation, gratitude, joy. But you said so the frustration and anger, those aren't necessarily heart emotions?
I don't think they are. I think they're emotions that are born from unmet expectations, from our inability to make peace with things, from a lack of harmony within ourselves, a lack of harmony within how we are, associating with others or with life. So I don't think that they come from a deeper heart. I'm not saying that all those emotions are bad or wrong. I never believe that any emotion is that way. I think all emotions are part of life, and the emotional choices that we make are what we're painting the picture of our life with. I've just learned in my life that it's better to paint with certain emotions than others. The picture of life looks different if I'm painting with emotions that are more regenerative, more uplifting. It does not mean that I don't feel frustration or sadness or anxiousness. I can feel all those emotions. Everybody can, a myriad of emotions. It
Those
becomes a
those
matter of emotional choice, though, about what I decide to do with that, whether I decide to let that be that way or whether I decide to make a shift.
those emotions, the frustration, this and that, isn't that what we're being fed on a daily basis through media and the news and this sort of thing?
Of course we are. Society operates a lot on those principles. It's like almost natural and appropriate to get mad about certain things or frustrated about certain things. And it's just sort of a habitual state of consciousness. That's there. I think we're growing out of that. I think that as the evolutionary curve continues to accelerate, we are beginning to change that and see that that's not the way we want to live. But it's difficult to do that because it surrounds us, not just through the media, but certainly in the behaviors we observe in others.
How about through the electromagnetic field that we're talking about at the heart? Does it come in through there as well?
Absolutely. We've done a study, a very interesting study, showing that the heart is actually receiving information, or let's put it this way, strongly indicating. It's a study published a while back, actually. It's a published study through the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. It's called the Electrophysiology of Intuition. I'll briefly describe that. In that study, test subjects, a lot of them, were were hooked up to a variety of biomedical devices measuring things like brainwave functions, galvanic skin response, heart rate variability, heart evoke potentials, a lot of information and data coming from the bodies of the participants. They were placed in front of a computer. That computer had been loaded with images. Some of those images were chosen to be very evocative of something positive, like, nature scene, bunny rabbits, things like that. The other images were intended to be horrific, you know, car accidents, snakes, stabbings, things like that. The computer was selecting the images randomly, Gwilda. In other words, it wasn't programmed. The person would sit in front of the computer. There would be a prompt that came up on the computer asking them to press a button. They would press the button. There was a 6-second delay, and then the picture would show up. Then that process was repeated over and over and over and over through randomly selected picture samples that were showing up on the screen. While that was happening, their bodies, all that information was coming back from the body. Here's where it got really interesting. In many to most cases, the body was responding to the picture the way it would depending on the type of picture that would show up. But it was responding 6 seconds before the picture actually showed up on the screen.
Seriously.
6-second delay. In other words, they push the button, the 6-second delay is there, the body starts responding as if the picture of the snake is there or the picture of the bunny rabbit's there, and the picture's not there yet. And it happened over and over and over again that the body was responding to the picture 6 seconds before the picture emerged on the screen. Now, when I talked to the lead scientist on the project, Dr. Roland McCready, I was asking him so I could get the story right in case I was in a situation like right now where I needed to explain it. And he said, yeah, but here's something I want you to understand. He said the 6-second measurement was where the research protocol had been set. Meaning, what if they had set it at 60 seconds? Or 60 days or whatever. So I'll paraphrase now, but in the summary of the research study, it said it appears as if the heart is well, I forgot an important part. Excuse me for that. When they analyzed the data in the body that was responding to the picture before it was there, they found the first responder was the heart. And then a second and a half after that, the brain responded. And then a second and a half before the picture emerged on the screen, the two came together, heart and brain coupled energetically. Then the picture showed up. So it was heart and brain together. So the first responder was the heart. So, in the research summary, they said that basically it appears that the heart has access to a field of information that goes beyond the normal boundaries of logical linear intelligence and time and space. It's receiving information. They went on to say that it's something that probably has been happening all along. It's a natural part of how we function, but that we are not aware of it. And that in the future, as we become more aware of it, it will become more obvious that that's what's happening, and we can utilize that in ways that would be beneficial to us. That's a big
Fant-
paraphrase, but that's what they were saying.
Fantastic. So that would also indicate that if I'm sitting next to someone, or even across the room or whatever, that's having a bad day, that information is going to go through my field and be picked up by my heart, whether there's any outward display of it or not.
That's correct. We're communicating energetically all the time. I'll take it a step further. You and I are in different physical locations right now, but we are in a shared experience. My belief is that we're not only communicating through our conversation and through seeing each other on our computer screens, we're communicating energetically right now through the shared experience that we're having. A step further than that is I believe that we are communicating energetically with all of our listeners, and that energetic communication is taking place whether they're listening to this at the same time or whether they're listening to it because they found it online or through one of the wonderful ways in which you distribute your programs. Well, they found it 6 months later. That energetic communication is still taking place. So it opens up a whole new world of understanding, or a whole new world of possibility of what's taking place in our lives. And it's part of the, to me, expansion of awareness that we are going through right now as we go through this evolutionary cycle on planet Earth.
It's amazing to me because, like you mentioned, the indigenous people, and for ages, the heart has been considered the major organ, the one of not just feeling, but of thought and choices and that sort of thing. And also, the shamanic cultures believe in traveling through time and space, and not restricted to time and space. And
Yep.
all of this is starting to explain that, is it not?
Well, it helps. I think it can explain some of these sort of, I would just call them wider concepts, that are very intriguing to us and very, they're entertaining in a way. I certainly enjoy thinking about those things myself. But so many times when I spend time thinking about that, it's an entertaining exercise that doesn't result in an understanding. And I think that the focus we need right now is not so much on that, but on how are we going to learn to get along better on this planet. You know, to me, the big missing factor that's holding back these new understandings, really, for them coalescing into something that's solid, hinges on one thing. It's a secret hidden in plain view. The secret is we need to learn to get along better. It's a simple statement, but it's a lot if you unpack that of what I think I just said. Learn to get along with ourselves. How divided are we internally in between what we think and what we feel? How divided are we in our own self-perceptions that we have about who we are and what we are? How much self-doubt is there? How much self-criticism is there? How much do we do that to ourselves? So there's a big separation. We're not getting along even within ourselves in many cases. And then there's the interactions with life and with people and all the division, the separations, the biases, the judgments that are so prevalent. And all of that is holding back higher dimensional consciousness from entering into humanness. That's where the secrets of the other things that people are considering about time and space travel and a lot of these interesting subjects, that's where a new understanding can emerge from. It's difficult for that information to even come in and for us to receive it while we're living in a state where we're separated and divided so much. That can be corrected. And we can learn to get along better. We can learn to not have to buy into everything that people do say. We can have our differences of opinion, but we can do it with a higher degree of acceptance rather than the sort of hardcore judgments and reactiveness that happens so much. We can learn to accept more. We can learn to see through the eyes of compassion a bit more, as opposed to the eyes of judgment, which is the natural way in which we often see things.
Certainly the way we've been conditioned.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it's an inside job, basically, that it has to start within each of us?
It does, and I'll say a very soft statement right now, but it could be perceived as soft. The way in which we can do that, the only way I know that we can accomplish those things is through the power of love. We need to learn to love more. And love takes on many forms. It's a little word that can mean anything from something to avoid to the driving force that controls the entire universe, and thousands of shades in between. And so love is a little word, but there are aspects of love. Kindness is a form of love, for example. Can we be kinder to somebody? Just a little kinder. Things like dignity, and honor and courage, they're all forms of love. And then there's the overt references to love, like the care and the compassion and those type of love. But I think
Oh, we're going to have to pick up love on the other side of a station break.
I'm loving our conversation. I'm looking forward to being right back.
Howard and I will return, so you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can the heart speak? If so, what is its language? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us this hour is the co-author of Heart Math Solution, Howard Martin. So, Howard, we've been talking about how the heart may speak. And if so, are we talking, we were saying it's intuition, but can it also be ESP?
ESP, extrasensory perception. Well, that's just a generic term that represents, intelligence perception beyond the five senses, or from something different than just the five senses. And yes, I think it relates to that for sure. And I'll put it in maybe a slightly different context. We all live in this vast field of information, and it is vast and it's infinite. It's called consciousness. We're constantly drawing from that field, both consciously at times, but usually unconsciously. Information is coming in through the five senses, which is very narrow. We got a little brain here. We've got our five senses, and this vast information field. We're taking that information in through the five senses, and then we are interpreting it. But here's how we're interpreting it. We're interpreting it through what we choose to think and feel. And in doing so, we are consciously co-creating our own version of reality. Now, we live in big shared realities. We're on planet Earth. We breathe air. We have sun, we have moon. There's thousands of these shared realities that we have. But if you think about it, through how we think and how we feel and what we want to perceive, we each have our own unique version, moment to moment, of that shared reality. So we have our own. So when we learn to operate more from the heart and develop the qualities and values of the heart, there are many benefits. One of those is we begin to develop new sensing capacity. Our sensing capacity increases. We begin to access more information from that vast field. And then our interpretive capacities increase as well. So we begin to expand awareness. That's sort of a long-winded answer, but a way in which we're expanding awareness, right? We're doing it through drawing in information and drawing in more information from the field, and then making intelligent interpretation of that through how we think and how we feel and the choices we're making about how we think and feel.
So this brings up the question of AI and singularity. So are you familiar with that? I'm sure.
Yeah.
When AI becomes conscious, if AI doesn't have a physical heart, how's that going to work?
Well, it's interesting. Good question. And so these are really big questions that you're asking, Bill.
I like to keep you on your toes, Howard.
Like a challenging interview. This was good. AI is interesting to me. I'll put it in maybe this context. I was talking to a friend of mine last summer, another author named Gary Zukav. We were discussing AI, and he said, I'm not concerned about AI taking over everything. He said, reason is I'm not concerned is because it doesn't have a soul. And that was comforting to me in a way to think about it from that context. It's going to be able to do things that we can't do. It's going to be able to do things that we're doing now better than we can do them. It already is. It's already amazing what it's doing. And I think that is a threat in the moment, but it's also a huge gift. Because what it's going to do is going to free us from the mundane. It's going to allow us to be something that we are designed to be, which is human beings. We're unique within the universe at being human beings. We were never meant to be slavishly working on an assembly line, or standing behind a checkout at the grocery store, taking people's money mechanically over and over again. These things are not bad, but they're not what we were ultimately designed to be. We were ultimately designed to be highly creative beings. that create. We're co-creators. We're highly creative, but we're being suppressed by the mundaneness of the third dimensional reality and the task associated with it. AI is going to alleviate some of that. Along the way, it's going to get smarter than we want it to. It's going to make mistakes. It's going to be, in some ways, a threat. It's going to create some problems. It's inevitable. We have to learn to adapt to it and work with it. An analogy I came up with for myself not long ago was the car. When cars came out, they were a huge threat. Everybody says these things are going to kill everybody. You can't have these things. And guess what? They did. They killed a lot of people. But yet, look at what cars did, right? It's not that there were never a car accident or there were never a death from a car. They were right about that. And it did do that. But look at what it did beyond that. AI is going to create some problems, but look at the potential possibilities of what it can do to free us to be the creative, magnificent beings we are designed to be.
So as AI backfills us, that prompts us to step up our game.
Yep. Exactly. I like
I
the way
like
you
that.
said that. As it backfills us, that's a good term. I'll use that.
It's all yours.
As it backfills us, yeah, we get to do other things. Now, in the beginning, it's going to be, well, I lost my job. I can't make the rent, all that sort of stuff. I was in a major department store thing with my wife not long ago, and in the checkout line, I looked at my wife and said, give it a year or two, maybe 3 years. This person's not going to be standing here. But then on the other hand, I had to do a presentation last week where I was keynoting a conference in Mexico on creativity and innovation. I used ChatGPT to help me choose a title, and I called it The Colors of Imagination. I wanted an image to represent the colors of imagination. I looked at all the hundreds, if not thousands, of images that I had. I didn't find anything that I really thought was exactly right. I had a creative insight where I remembered that there are AI image generation programs out there now. I Googled it. I found that there were dozens and dozens. I began to experiment. I chose one. I started to learn it. And I started to create this image of the colors of imagination. The image that I created far exceeded my imagination. I got back an image more beautiful than I could have imagined. And as a result of that, I decided to create all the images for that presentation the same way. And then when I showed it, the comments that came back to me, a lot of from the participants, about 1,000 people there, a lot of them were saying, they weren't saying, what you said about the heart's field was so important. They were saying, those images you had on your screen, they were absolutely amazing. Where did you get those, And then they were generated by an AI program. Now, it was my imagination working with the AI to create the imagery. So it was a co-creative process. But the results were better than anything I could have created. I'm not a painter. I'm not a photographer, but yet I was able to create images that were what I wanted people to see, but better than what I could have come up with.
It's amazing the and how quickly it's coming to the fore. It's like at this point it takes AI to program AI because things are moving so fast. So we
Yeah.
definitely have to find a new place to be, don't we?
Yeah, we're learning, we're growing. It's all part of the evolution, and we've got to come up with a way of adapting to it. But I think that the first step in that, for me at least, is not to see it as a threat. I see it as an opportunity to to change the way things function. And again, I'm all about people helping people become more empowered. That's why I do what I do. People can become more empowered and they can become more of who they truly are, really, not just the assumed self. All that stuff is happening right now. It's part of what's going on in the world in the evolutionary phase we're in. And so if I can find ways to use AI to help empower people, then that's, to me, a decent use of AI.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we don't start using AI, we're crippling ourselves at this point.
That's right.
So we've been talking about how heart intelligence, intuition, I mean, the value of heart being connected to our own hearts has been pretty clearly demonstrated here in the last little bit in our conversation. But people have been disconnected from their hearts. Why were they disconnected and how do we reconnect?
First of all, they were disconnected because along the way, mind got associated with being the only source of intelligence. And research even supported that a long, long time ago. And so people began to see heart as just an organ that pumps blood or maybe a sweet sentimental emotion. And they began to live life more from the neck up. Everything was supposed to be happening in the brain only. And science today knows that intelligence is distributed throughout our entire body, even down to the cells being intelligent. So it isn't all in the brain. I'm not down on the brain, by the way. Heart and brain working together is where we really get intelligence. Like it's a partnership that we have to have. And so along the way, everything got assigned to the brain and the mind. And then sort of the roar of ambition and survival drove people away from the heart. When we're children, we're more naturally connected to our hearts. We see life through the sparkle of the heart, through the eyes of the heart. Two children can be at school and have a little scuffle on the playground. The teacher breaks it up, and 15 minutes later they're playing together again. Two adults have a crossword in the office. One thing said could be two words, and they stay mad at each other for a week. Because the heart was more available in the children, right? Along the way, it kind of gets programmed out of us. It gets programmed out of us through the society that we observe. It gets programmed out of us through the educational system, which is about reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not about the other stuff. And so over time, we lose this connection. Now, the good news is we can return to it quicker than we think. And that's what HeartMath does. Through the HeartMath system, the tools, the techniques, the training, the science, and the technology that we provide, we're helping people reconnect with something that they already have. We're not inventing heart. We're creating a reliable, quick path back to it. A reconnection with that part of ourselves that is really at the core of our being. That's at the core, at the heart. The road home is actually shorter than people realize. It's not that hard. It can be done. It's just a matter of recognizing it, acknowledging heart again, looking to it for a little intuitive guidance, practicing whatever people can practice that helps give them more connected, heart-related life. Doesn't have to be heart math, can be a lot of things. And practicing a little bit there, and then I'll just put it in an even simpler context. Make an effort to do things like appreciate the good things you already have in your life.
Gratitude is huge, isn't it?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Try to be just a little bit extra kinder to people. These are little steps you can take, but those little steps begin to open up pretty quickly. And then the downloads start. Then the new insights, the new understandings, the new desire for more heart. It begins to reprogram us in a certain way. And then those emotions that we've liked for so long, some of those just don't have the same desire anymore. We don't like feeling sad. We don't like feeling upset about politics or something. It just doesn't have the same appetite. The emotional appetite changes. And we begin to have a life that looks a lot different. And over time, as we do that, it begins to draw and magnetize from that field we talked about earlier. New understanding, new experiences, new conveniences, new fulfillment begins to come in. And we begin to live a life far better than the one we could have imagined, just like creating those pictures. If we do that, put a little more heart into anything that we do, it will begin to open up, again, possibilities that exceed our expectations. And I think many people are starting to experience that. I know the world has got so many problems now, it is a mess in many ways. But I also see the other side of that equation. I see hundreds of millions of people around the world changing values, changing beliefs, going through their own process of waking up, doing good things, conscious efforts to grow, to change, and contribute.
Well, it's time to take another station break. Howard and I will be back to explore the power of heart intelligence. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can heart intelligence save the world? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with the co-founder of HeartMath, Howard Martin. His website, heartmath.com. So, Howard, there's the question of the day. And we're clearly in a time of major upheaval and transition. How can heart intelligence help us navigate through this?
Well, it's essential. It's no way we do it without it. First of all, I don't think the world necessarily needs to be saved. I think the world's going to come out okay. It doesn't look that way right now, but I think we're on the right track. Actually, I think we're in the right place at the right time with what the evolution needs to be. But it sure needs some changes, right? And those changes cannot come about until I think we manifest more of the qualities of the heart and add those into what we do. And it doesn't have to even be called heart. It's the qualities of the heart. The intuitive intelligence provided by the heart, along with the emotional characteristics associated with it, have to be a part of the process now. Everything else has been tried. Logical, linear, mind based intelligence alone, without partnership with the heart, has gotten us to where we are today. There's some good in that, but there's some problems with it too. We have to begin to manifest more of these qualities, collectively as well as individually, to meet the challenges that we're going to face. Where are the solutions to climate change going to come from? You know, where are we going to find ways to begin to reduce or eliminate war as a process of resolution of trying to resolve something? You know, we got to add more of these qualities into what we do. So to me, of course, that's my bias. It's my mission. That's my life's work. But when I look at the world today, I say, well, this is one of the only things that really hadn't been tried enough yet. It's been talked about. It's been, dialogued. It's been placed into the respected confines of philosophy and spirituality and religion. But we got to bring it to the street. And when we do that, I think we're going to find the solutions that we need to meet the challenges that we're facing. Without it, I think it's going to be a hard road. And so that's what keeps me motivated. Some 30 some years later after we started Heart Math, I feel still like a little kid that's, having fun and out in the world trying to help people find something they already have inside so they can have a better life.
Well, if we think of the heart as the connection to all this esoteric, and by esoteric I mean unseen, information, and from that information is where our new solutions can possibly come. Doesn't it make sense that the first step is reconnecting with our heart so we can get the information in the first place?
It does. And what has anybody got to lose by doing that? That's the point. When this heart is not competitive with anything. It doesn't mean you give up your beliefs. It doesn't mean you give up the wonderful minds and brains that we have. None of that goes away. You're just adding something to it. And so what would be the downside of adding more of that to your life, of having a little bit more care, compassion, understanding, first of all, for yourself, but then for other things and other people and other situations? There's no takeaway in that I can find.
Well, people are afraid of being vulnerable. I think that heart and open-heartedness is associated with vulnerability, is it not?
It is, but heart can also be associated with self-security. The place inside that we do go to and have gone to in our life when we need to find answers to something that we can't think our way through. We turn to our heart. That's when we do things like meditate or pray or walk on the beach or walk in the woods or drive off into the car in the middle of the night to try to work something out. A lot of times we're pulling deeper, aren't we? And we're not just, we can't figure out this problem. And the inner dialogue can change. I mean, times can be like, for me, this is a really hard situation. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. But you know what? I've dealt with tough situations before, and I'll find a way to deal with this one. That's the heart talking, right? So the heart produces a self-security. From a position of self-security, it's easier to be what we would call vulnerable. Vulnerable does not mean necessarily wearing your heart on your sleeve. It doesn't mean opening yourself up for unpleasantry. It does mean being self-honest. It does mean being able to speak your truth from an authentic place. That is being vulnerable. So it's not a weakness. Vulnerability is a strength. And it's born from a feeling of self-security. When I'm feeling more self-secure, I don't mind talking about things that may not be the most enjoyable for me to talk about.
So the key there is sovereignty within oneself.
Sovereignty. What would be your definition of that?
Unification, completeness.
Yeah, I think aligning within ourselves, alignment. Sovereignty is not a bad way to describe that. When we're aligned, when our heart, mind, and emotions are in sync, and this is what we measure with our technology, with our new app, the Heart Math app, with the type of technology that we have, we're measuring this internal synchronization that we have at the physiological level. It's beyond the physical, though. It's actually psychological. It's actually spiritual. When all that stuff sort of syncs up and aligns in a very casual, natural way, that's when we begin to operate at our very, very highest best. And that's when we're the people that we really want to be. That's when we're unfolding and evolving at a high rate of speed. And it's from that place where more of us do that, more consistently. We'll have good days, we'll have not good days, we'll have ups, we'll have downs. But when we do that more consistently, as more of us begin to do that, that openness and cooperation will become the norm rather than the exception.
So you can, it's easy to sit here and think, oh, how are we going to get everybody to do this? But it doesn't take everybody, does it?
It doesn't. No, the energetic fields are communicating all the time. And a good way of saying it is coherence is stronger than incoherence by far. A little bit of coherence can offset an awful lot of incoherence. Analogy I've used in the past is some of these cleaning fluids solutions that I've seen advertised on TV, where you only take the cap of the bottle and put it in a gallon of water. That's all it takes for that thing. Then it'll clean everything, right? And it's concentrated. That's right. And so coherence, alignment with the heart. The term we use at HeartMath is coherence. Coherence offsets a tremendous amount of incoherence. So it will take a small percentage of people really operating from a higher coherent level to offset a tremendous amount of the incoherence we see in the world today. So it doesn't take everybody. And it's sort of the way things work. We've seen that before. We were talking about AI earlier. When something catches on, there's a mass sort of consciousness that happens around it. ChatGPT, for example, reads something like 100 million users in 4 days. How fast did it grow, and how quickly did all of a sudden I never heard of this thing back several months ago. Now I'm using it on a daily basis for a variety of functions. The same could be true about some of the positive momentums that are on the edge of breakthrough right now. We're on the threshold of a new era, a new evolutionary era. Please, listener, know that I do see the problems and I have compassion for those. And I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but I am excited because I feel it and I see it. I see that we're on the cusp of a major breakthrough that'll happen in the not too distant future. It won't be like a big bang and all of a sudden the world's all great and everybody's loving each other. It's an incremental process, but important steps in that process are unfolding now and will unfold in an increasing rate of speed as we continue to move forward. So I'm excited and hopeful about the world that is emerging, while at the same time have a deep, deep heart's desire to reduce human suffering.
So Howard, it is that time in the show when I get to ask you, what is your mission?
My mission is to reduce human suffering, to help people find something that they already have inside, which is their heart, and to have more fulfillment in their life, fulfillment that can exceed even their greatest expectations. That's what I want for people. My mission in life is to try to facilitate that in whatever way I can.
Well, you've been doing a wonderful job from what I understand. Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure. And thank you for having me on your show. I want to acknowledge to you and to the people watching that I do a lot of radio shows and media things or whatever, and there are hosts that I can recognize as being really good. And Gwilda, you are a really good host. And I want to acknowledge you for that. You do a wonderful job with this show, and it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you. So one thing that we have not touched in on is heart attack. Heart attack seems to be a huge risk in our society. How does that relate with what we've been talking about this hour?
Well, when I ask cardiologists why we have so many cardiovascular problems in Western society, I've asked them that question for a long time, and generally I would say in 80 to 90% of the time, the first answer that comes back is stress. They don't say diet, they don't say exercise. They get around to that, but they talk about it's stress. They just say it casually. So the stressors of life are creating the heart problems that we have, including heart attacks. So we need to learn how to better manage stress. Well, how do we do that? Well, that's where the heart comes back into play. That's where the qualities associated with heart can help to offset some of the stressors in life. And as we begin to offset some of those stressors, it's better on us physically. And so the reduction of stress is at the core of, I think, helping to solve some of the problems we have with cardiovascular disease. Not all, but it's an important starting point in that process.
And coming from the places of fear and competition and negativity and lack of gratitude, those are very stressful, aren't they?
You just named forms of stress. There's much more, but yeah, you just did a great job of making a little list of stressors. I call them the stress points in our life. And they all do create the stressful situation in life, and that floods our system with hormones that we don't want too many of. It puts a lot of wear and tear and strain on the nervous system. It does create problems within the physical heart itself, and that can lead to significant health problems like heart attacks. So I think that learning to reduce stress, however people do that, and I think the inside out job is the best way to do it. And I think that's where heart comes into play, is important for our physical health as well as our spiritual well being, and well as the intelligence and awareness increases that we all want to be able to understand the big pictures.
So we have a choice to make, don't we?
We do. And we have a choice individually and collectively in society right now of how fast or how slow do we want this evolution to go. And I think that choice is happening right now.
Well, it's timely. We definitely need to get on it, don't we?
We do.
Well, unfortunately, Howard, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
It's my pleasure. It really is. And I'm always glad to be with you. And I hope that people who've given their time and attention to this conversation have taken away something that will help them feel more empowered and have.
So our guest this hour has been Howard Martin. Howard is co-founder of Heart Math, co-author of Heart Math Solution, and contributing author for Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Heart's Intuitive Guidance for Effective Choices and Solutions. To find out more about Howard and all the innovative things he and Heart Math are doing, visit heartmath.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But most importantly, please be sure to join us right here next time. This mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.